Welcome, friends. Welcome to Poutinerie Cinema with your friend Carter Belanger and Dr. Ian Hazelwood.
Did you know it's rude to not drink after you cheer?
Well, guys, today for our very first review, we're going to be reviewing Justice League, which just came out. Me and Ian were waiting it very impatiently for many years. Pretty much my whole life, actually, I've been waiting for this movie. We just saw it the other day, and we're going to tell you what we thought of it, our thoughts and feelings and everything.
So with this review, we're going to be taking more of a structured approach to it. We're going to talk about our expectations, so what we were feeling before we saw the movie, our reaction, initial reaction, the reality of our thoughts after we saw the movie, our pros, our cons, and then lastly, our final score, which will be showcased at the end of the review.
So Ian, tell me, what were your expectations going into this huge film?
Well, I remember all the ruckus from a year and a half ago when BVS just first started to come out. There was a lot of negativity around the darkness and the grimness and the tone of the movie. So I knew that the film was going to be a little bit more on the lighter side. Like, I know there was going to be some lightheartedness to it, and I did expect that going in, especially based on the trailers that we saw from Comic-Con like a year and a half ago, or
They were
about a
kind
year
of
ago.
scrambling to correct their mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. At least from what the critics' response was, they were trying to correct their mistakes. So I knew it was going to be this lighthearted, a little bit more lighthearted movie going into it. I was going to expect a little bit more color, a little more jokes, and that was cool. I was excited for that.
Is it what you would want though? Like, is that what you would prefer?
It depends on how they tackled it. So that was my expectation. Like, I was willing to give it a chance and see what they would do with it. I was really excited to see all these characters on screen for the first time, as we all were very excited to see these characters to just come to life on a big screen, live action, big production value. I was excited for that. I was expecting it to follow a lot based on the tone of BVS, but maybe adding a little bit more lightheartedness to it. And then my last sort of expectation was that Superman's return would just be this epic sort of comeback. I was expecting them to use the full-on John Williams Superman theme, but those were my sort of initial expectations of the film.
Well, Justice League, let me tell you, I was pretty excited, very, very excited for this movie. I've grown up reading comics. My dad's a huge comic buff. He's got comics like in garages, and he's raised me on comics, and read all the Crisis graphic novels, and I've loved Justice League, so I'm very excited for this movie. Before I say my expectations, I guess we got to talk a little bit about Batman versus Superman. Everyone knows the world's basically didn't like this movie, but I think when you really look into it, there's pretty much two types of people. People who loved Batman vs. Superman, people who hated Batman vs. Superman. You and I both know from talking, we saw Batman vs. Superman with about 5 other guys. All of us came out of that theater being like, this is like amazing, like top best superhero movies we'd ever seen, and then we were shocked to see the reviews. Time hasn't really changed much. I still love Batman vs. Superman. I love Zack Snyder's take on it. I thought it was a really cool, gritty, it was just a big breath of fresh air after I had started to become very just tired of Marvel movies. So for Justice League being in a Zack Snyder movie, I basically was waiting for, Batman vs. Superman 2. That's what I was waiting for,
Yeah.
And then when, we heard how Joss Whedon was taking over after Zack Snyder had to step down, Warner Brothers was trying to lighten up the film a lot because they were realizing, oh my god, this is Batman vs. Superman 2 and this is going to flop again, right? So Joss Whedon kind of was coming in trying to really lighten up the film. So I went into this movie thinking, okay, it's going to be a way lighter film. I hope it's not just, a DC Avengers. I still trusted that because, Zack Snyder was still supposed to have, made the majority of this movie, that it was going to be, I was going to like it in a similar way to how I liked Batman vs. Superman. I also heard through rumors that Danny Elfman had taken over as doing the score for the film and was going to include the 1989 Batman theme and the John Williams Superman theme. To me, that was like, oh my, that's great. I was blown away by that. I was like, that's going to be so cool and so unexpected and so weird, but like just so awesome. So I was going in, just really looking forward to that as a huge point, but also just, with hoping that, it was going to be a lighter film, but not too light. That's what I was going in hoping for this movie.
So, Carter, what were your sort of initial reactions after originally just seeing the film for the first time? Actually, you saw it a couple times, so you probably have a better grasp of what your reactions and feelings for the movie, what actually were.
When I came out of the theater, I felt very, I don't know, a little bit confused, a little bit, I didn't know how to feel. I felt similar to how I felt when I came out of Suicide Squad, and you and I both know, we've talked about that. We both eventually came to terms with that movie that we didn't like it. So I instantly was very shocked as I was watching it at how light the movie was and how many jokes there were and just how... I knew, again, like I said with Joss Whedon, that it was going to be lighter, but I didn't expect it to be that light. It was just a little bit shocking. While I was watching the movie, I did enjoy it. It was very compelling, I guess. And I felt interested in the characters, and I liked the way that the team played off each other, and it was an interesting watch. And then it was weird, and then as soon as like the movie ended, I kind of was just like, oh, did I even really enjoy that? It was weird. I don't know why, if anyone else has experienced that when they watch a movie, but as I was watching it, I enjoyed it. And then as soon as it was over, it's like my whole opinion almost kind of changed. But that being said, I still think, I have to think about it a little more, I still think I enjoyed it more than any Marvel movie I've ever seen. So I know that sounds weird, but I'm kind of not really that big of a fan of Marvel, but I still, like I said, found it very enjoyable while I was watching it. But again, it was a bit, when I first saw it, was kind of just shocked at how light it was. I guess that's how I felt.
Right. So, basically the feeling that I got when I came out of the theater, like, I thought it was a good movie. It was solid. It had some flaws, but I had the same sort of feeling that I did when I first saw Suicide Squad. I was very pessimistic about that movie to begin with, so that probably had a little bit of impact of how I felt about that movie, and I did think that movie was pretty bad. I didn't think it was a great movie, but it still left me with that feeling of a little bit of disappointment. I know I enjoyed the movie, but there was just something off about it. I really think that it could have been...
torn a little bit. You didn't know what to feel.
I really think it just could have been a better movie, and once we get into the pros and cons, I think that'll that will start to come out a little bit more as to why I felt that way.
Alright guys, we're going to have a quick intermission now, and a quick word from our sponsor, Niche. So Whedon, tell me your pros. After seeing this movie, what are your pros, your favorite parts about Justice League?
Aha! So yeah, there was a lot of good parts to this movie. I absolutely loved the cast working together. I thought they all picked very good actors to portray these characters. Ray Fisher playing Cyborg, I felt a little bit monotone, but I mean, I guess that's what comes with the Cyborg character. But as the actual visual appearance of him, he looked exactly how he did in the comics. He looked great as Cyborg, and same with Barry Allen as the Flash, portrayed by Ezra Miller. He was really great. He had a really good comedic value to the movie. Batman was great. I really loved the score of the original Batman theme being included into this movie. It just was really great. It still gave this sort of grim outlook on Batman, but it still gave this sort of majestic superhero notion that he should be. And the same goes with Wonder Woman as well as Aquaman. The directing style, cinematography, both just fantastic as always, because we know Zack Snyder is a very visual director.
Yes.
Which brings me to my favorite part, which is the part where they give the backstory of Steppenwolf. It was very visual. It had some really cool cues, like the Green Lantern soldiers, as well as just a lot of really cool epic visual style. That was probably my favorite part of the entire movie.
Well, first thing I just loved about this movie was every time Batman was on screen doing Batman things with the 1989 Michael Keaton Batman soundtrack. That to me was like, I loved that so much. I don't even know why. I don't know what it was. And maybe it was just the nostalgia in me of being a little kid. Seeing that with a live action Batman. Oh man, every time I'd hear a bit of that tune come in, especially when they're on the roof talking to Commissioner Gordon, he just does that big giant superhero land and you hear the theme rise. I love that. It gave me chills every time. Like I said before, I love this Batman and his dynamic with Alfred, and just seeing that duo with that theme, it was great. So that's my main pro. Every time that happened. Another thing I loved, which I didn't expect to really care about, but I ended up loving, was Aquaman. When the trailers, I was kind of a little bit like confused. Like I didn't get every line Aquaman had, like my man and all that stuff. I didn't get what he was going for, but I don't know. In the movie, he was great. He was like, just kind of like the stone cold, kind of like the badass in the corner who's all pessimistic the whole time. And like I love his line where he's just like randomly like, I think we're all gonna die. Like I loved having that
And
juxtaposition. But yeah, I loved Aquaman, and I didn't expect to. It was a great surprise, just really liking Jason Momoa the way he did that character. So I'm actually really excited for the Aquaman movie now. So yeah, and then the other characters, Flash. I loved Flash. He was like solid. You know, he was comedic. None of it was ever cringy. I was worrying that because with Jesse Eisenberg kind of being that weird character in BVS, which I didn't really ever. He's kind of like the lowest part of BVS for me. I was worried that it was going to be a little bit cringy with the Flash too. But no, it was actually, he was like a very consistent, very, you know, I instantly got his character. I loved Wonder Woman as always. Henry Cavill was Henry Cavilling the whole time as per usual, you know. Cyborg worked, you know. I liked the way he looked. I actually loved like the sound design too around his character, the way he moved and like even just like his fingers, like everything. It looked actually, the CGI looked pretty good. As for his like performance though, I don't know, like it was a little bit almost seemed wooden at times, like almost like stage acty a little bit sometimes. Like he was just a little bit, seemed like needlessly overdramatic in certain points. I find. I loved the way the whole team worked together, how they talked to each other, how they played off each other. I've heard people complain like, oh, there wasn't enough like, you know, drama and they didn't argue enough and stuff like that. But first of all, I don't see how that's true at all. I mean, you have Aquaman and Cyborg arguing.
And there's that whole one scene where they're sitting in Batman's cave and they're talking about getting Superman back. And everyone is sort of tense in that part. There's a lot of tensity around that scene. So I also don't understand, from what I've heard from a lot of other critics and a lot of other reviews, saying that there's no tension between these characters. When there was an entire scene dedicated around creating tension and sort of arguments and decisions around these characters.
Yeah. No, I loved it. And again, now that I'm thinking about it, like we had the whole Bruce Wayne and Wonder Woman getting in a whole argument about Steve Trevor, and like she literally like punches him into like, anyway. I don't get what critics are talking about with the whole thing. They're basically arguing like for half of the time they were together. Another really huge favorite part for me was in the opening, and then I like this because it was probably the most Zack Snyder-y part of the whole film. It reminded me a lot of Watchmen. Was the opening with that kind of weird, kind of almost creepy music with that girl singing when Superman's still dead. It's kind of just like the opening montage. I thought that was really great.
It had a really nice visual appeal to it.
Visually.
Set a good tone for what we thought the movie was
going
to be.
Yeah. I love that part.
So yeah, I know before we started talking about how we were going to do this review, I know that you said you had a lot of cons for a lot of the parts of the movie. So just tell me about, basically, I guess, like some of the worst parts that you thought that this movie suffered from.
Well, my cons... I do have a lot more cons than pros, unfortunately. I guess I'll just start. Steppenwolf thought he was the dumbest villain ever. People have said this a bunch of times, but he was just a CGI monster smashing things with an axe. Like, I literally don't know anything about his actual character other than, like, every word he said in the movie was just, like, take over world. Like, I don't know. I said this to you, but I wonder, like, when the actor... who actually played Mance Rayder in Game of Thrones. And the actor was like asking the director about his character. Like, I can't imagine what the director would have said because the character just seems so nothing to him, basically. So I don't know. I thought the villain of the movie was pretty pointless, and I didn't care about him at all. And then a big thing for me that I hated was, and this goes into the adding humor to the movie, but Batman being jokey, which to me is just like we have other characters like Barry Allen and anyone but Batman. And so going off of that, I guess I'll finally just really talk about just the film's lighter tone. It was just so much more of a Marvel movie than I expected it to be, which I was just kind of crushed about. I can't imagine, like, when you watch Batman vs. Superman and you see like the dream sequence where he's wearing like the trench coat and he's fighting all those people, or even just like when he's attacking people in that warehouse, Batman, how could you like have scenes like that in a movie and then the very next movie it's like the movie we just watched? It was like night and day for tone wise. I watched a Chris Stuckman review and he was just saying he generally liked the movie, but he had one comment at the end where he was just saying how fluffy the movie is, and I think that's a great word for it. I did not expect that, and I just wanted more. I wanted it to be taken more seriously. Also, how rushed the movie was. It felt so rushed, so, the pacing was just so, you didn't have a chance to breathe or really get to know any of the characters, it felt like, as much as you'd want to. So one little point I remember from the movie that I didn't like was, well, I not necessarily didn't like because I thought it was cool, but I thought it was pointless. Was Superman, where he goes crazy when they bring him back to life and he attacks everyone. I just didn't get why. Like, what was the point? And also the fact that they kind of just don't. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I wasn't paying attention enough, but they don't really explain it very well. But he kind of just like slowly, I guess. Okay, yes, now he's not crazy anymore. Like, I remember just being like, what was the point of that whole thing? And it just didn't really serve the story. It didn't serve the plot. It was just kind of like, you know, it'd be cool if Superman fought everyone in Justice League. That'd be sick. Like, it didn't really have any point within the context of like the story and the plot in the movie. My next con I have with the movie, which is all the scenes that were taken out of the movie that we saw in the trailer. And that seems weird to judge a movie based on that, and I didn't even really know until after the movie, and I started realizing. But it kind of just it says a lot about how the movie was made, I find.
Yeah.
I mean, I like a movie where you're seeing someone's vision, and they're just very obsessed over their vision, you know? And it makes me think that there was a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and a lot of people just, you know, inputting their own ideas and taking stuff out, and it's just my opinion, but usually I find that's not a good sign for the, you know, the creativity behind a film and the artistic side of, you know, making a film is if there's just all these omitted scenes. It's like, wow, they were really trying to put a Band-Aid on something, or something was going horribly wrong.
And I feel like because there were too many different people and too many different reshoots involved, that we're not actually going to get to see the original Justice League that it was intended to be once it comes out on Blu-ray, which is really disappointing. Right, so my cons, I feel like there's actually more cons than there are pros. But looking at both of them, I feel like the pros sort of start to outweigh the cons just because I love these characters so much. The movie this is a con for me. It might not be a con for everyone else, but the movie was way more lighthearted than I was expecting it to. There were so many jokes that they're throwing in there. Like, characters that you wouldn't expect to be making jokes, like Bruce Wayne. When Ben Affleck is playing Bruce Wayne, he is way more joke-inducing than he normally would be.
Out of character.
Yeah, it was just really out of character. And even when he was playing Batman, it almost felt like he felt like he was the George Clooney Batman, and that just didn't feel weird. It felt fake. It didn't feel real. Like, the only parts that he really felt like he was playing Batman were the parts where Danny Elfman original Batman theme was playing, and I felt like Joss Whedon had way more of a helping hand in this movie that we were originally led on to believe. Yeah. Just the tone didn't follow what Zack Snyder had originally intended to with BVS, which is a movie that I know we both really enjoyed. So I was sort of expecting that, but it turned out to be like the Avengers, but on the DC side.
Right.
And then
which we all kind of expected a bit because of Joss Whedon, but you're saying it's a lot more than you expected.
It feels like he completely took over the movie, aside from maybe some really awesome visual scenes, which I know that Zack Snyder played a really big hand in. Which leads me to my next point, which is the movie felt rushed. Like, we didn't get to see these characters develop as much as we had liked to. I feel like if the movie had been a little bit longer, maybe about 40 or 50 minutes longer, we could have got some really good backstories on these characters, like the Flash. It's cool that we got to see his dad in jail and everything, and it's cool that we got to see a little bit of how his character would react in these situations, but I just feel like it could have been a little bit better, and same goes with Aquaman, and especially Cyborg. He was one of my least favorite characters of the movie. Steppenwolf, he was a very lame villain. He didn't really have like this sense of threatening compared to some other villains that we've seen in superhero movie history. He existed just to be a source of evil.
Yeah,
it's pretty much
cutter kind of
villain,
yeah,
and he was a big CGI monster. Another disappointing part was Superman's return. I was expecting this to be a very big, epic comeback. I thought that the original John Williams theme was going to play over him flying in.
Expecting that,
I was expecting him to fly in, basically have this classic of a theme.
Just the epic scene.
Yeah,
chills.
Epic scene.
It feels chills scene.
Yeah.
That, you know.
But what we got, it was cool. It was cool that they brought him back, and I did like the way that they brought him back. It just could have been a little bit more powerful.
Yeah.
And
more of a punch.
Yeah, more of a punch.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, those are pretty much all my cons for the movie, but I do have one least favorite part. So, when they're trying to calm down Superman, when Superman first comes back to life, and they're trying to calm him down, they have to fight him because Superman doesn't know who he is. When they revive Superman, they use the Mother Box to revive him. Now, when they start fighting Superman, the Mother Box just gets left in the middle of an open field in the park. It's just like, that is the dumbest plot decision that I've ever heard of. It could have just avoided the entire battle at the end of the movie. If Superman was back and they had the mother box, they would have just been able to defend the entire last sequence of the movie. So that's like the biggest plot hole I think I've seen in movie history in a really long time, and that's probably my biggest problem with the movie itself, was just that one little plot hole. It's crazy how much one little plot hole can make a difference when it comes to how you react to a movie.
All right, guys, it's time for our overall thoughts, summarization of how we feel about this film, and finally, our score.
So, based on my initial thoughts and reactions, my pros and my cons, it might seem like I give this movie a little bit of a lower score, because I do have, it seems like I have more cons than pros, but really a lot of the pros outweigh some of the cons. So like I said, this is not a bad movie. There's just a lot of problems with it that I have. It's still a good movie in the DC universe. It's not as good as some of the other movies, like Wonder Woman I thought was better. I thought BVS was better. I know that movie gets a lot of hate, but I really did love that movie. So for my final score, I'm going to give Justice League a 7.5 out of 10.
Well, what I see this movie as is a very, comedic, fun, easy to watch, light movie. As Chris Stuckman said, a very fluffy movie. And that's fine, but that's not what I wanted and not what I was expecting and not what I was looking forward to. I was looking forward to a film where someone has, an artistic vision and they're looking to accomplish that and they're very, obsessive over that vision. And I wanted them to kind of just take it seriously a little bit more. And I actually brought it up here, is a quote from Matt Reeves, who is supposed to direct, the Batfleck trilogy. So he's basically come out as saying this recently, what he thinks about movies, superhero movies and stuff. So, it's my hope to tell a very emotional Batman story, Matt Reeves told Yahoo Movies while promoting War of the Planet of the Apes. And I do see a very strong parallel between Batman and Caesar because they're both damaged characters who are grappling to do the right thing in a very imperfect world. A world that's filled with all of the corruption that is human. What I love that Christopher Nolan did was that he took the genre seriously, Reeves continued. What studios are willing to make at the moment is a very, very narrow band of films. What I discovered is that this genre has the potential to be about something more. You can use the metaphors of the genre to talk about a lot. I think that the metaphors of both of the franchises, Batman and Apes, enable you to tell stories that have deep emotional resonance. That's actually what excites me about it. It's interesting because I was obsessed with both as a child, and yet there is something potentially very adult about what you can explore under the cover of that fantasy. That is what draws me to it, and that's what I'm excited about. So anyway, I think that basically highlights what I'm trying to say pretty well.
Yeah.
Is that, there's so much room to take these movies and do so much more with them than just making, like a fun, fluffy movie that people can laugh at. With a movie like Justice League, I think that it's warranted that we have huge expectations, and I don't think it's asking that much to really have an incredible movie. People have been waiting for a movie like this for their whole lives, since they've been little kids. This script should have been, years even, should have been spent on this script, making it perfect, making the story, the narrative of the story should have just been, absolutely perfect, and, there's no reason why the time and effort should have been put into that. But instead we kind of have this, patchy, I don't see why this movie couldn't have been, amazing. And it definitely wasn't amazing. I think we both agree it was not amazing.
No,
it was okay. But again, it's Justice League. It should have been more. And there's no reason to me why it couldn't have been more. So, I'm going to give Justice League a 7. Well, friends, it's been fun here on Poutinerie Cinema. I'm your host, film critic, indie filmmaker, and filmologist Carter Belanger. This is your host, Dr. Ian Hazelwood. We hope you join us next time on...